My name is Monica, and I am 27 years old. At Christmas dinner, my sister and my mother gifted everyone except me. Then I realized I wasn't forgotten. I was being tested. The dining room glowed in soft golden light, the kind that makes everything look warmer than it really is. The tree in the corner sparkled with silver ornaments, and the smell of cinnamon and roasted turkey filled the air. I remember standing there for a second longer than usual, watching my family laugh around the table, telling myself that this year would be different. This year I would feel like I belonged. My sister Ivy was already seated, scrolling through her phone. Her red dress perfectly pressed, her smile sharp as ever. Mom was in the kitchen, giving final instructions even though everything was already done. She liked control. She liked appearances. And tonight, everything looked perfect. Dinner went smoothly. Too smoothly. Dad joked about his new golf clubs before he even opened them. My uncle laughed loudly at stories he'd told a dozen times before. Ivy kept hinting about a big surprise she had been waiting for. I tried to stay present, tried not to let the familiar tightness settle in my chest. Then it was time for gifts. Mom stood up first, holding a beautifully wrapped box. "This one is for your father," she announced warmly. Dad opened it, and inside was an expensive watch he had mentioned once in passing. Everyone clapped. Ivy handed him another gift, custom cufflinks with his initials engraved. More applause. Then Mom turned to Ivy. "And for my beautiful daughter," she said, her voice dripping with pride. Ivy opened a designer handbag. She gasped dramatically, stood up, hugged Mom tightly. "Oh my God, Mom, this is exactly what I wanted." I clapped. I smiled. I swallowed. Next were gifts for my uncle, my aunt, even my cousin who barely visits. Each present was thoughtful, personal, carefully chosen. Laughter filled the room. Wrapping paper piled up on the carpet. And then nothing. The pile disappeared. The tree looked suddenly smaller. My hands were empty. I waited. Maybe mine was hidden somewhere else. Maybe Mom had saved it for last. Maybe... Ivy looked at me and laughed lightly. "Oh," she said, tilting her head. "We must have misplaced yours." The words were casual, almost playful. But they hit like ice water. Mom didn't look surprised. She didn't look concerned. She just gave a small shrug. It must have gotten mixed up. "These things happen. These things happen." I felt every pair of eyes in the room flicker toward me, then quickly away. The air shifted. The sparkle of Christmas lights now felt harsh and exposing. They expected silence. They expected me to laugh it off like I always did. To say, "Oh, it's okay." To pretend it didn't matter. To protect the illusion that everything was fine. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. The little girl inside me, the one who had waited years for approval, for acknowledgement, for a simple "I'm proud of you," wanted to disappear. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. "That's okay," I said calmly. "Here's what I got myself." The room paused. I reached behind the chair where I had quietly placed a sleek, navy blue folder earlier that evening. I had almost left it in the car. Almost convinced myself it would be petty to bring it inside. Now I was glad I didn't. I placed it on the table, right between the half-empty wine glasses and crumpled wrapping paper. Slowly, deliberately, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Mom frowned slightly. Ivy leaned forward. "What is that?" she asked. I looked up, meeting their eyes one by one. "It's the contract for my new apartment," I said. "Downtown. I signed it yesterday." Silence. Dad blinked. "Apartment?" "Yes," I replied evenly. "I'm moving out. January 1st. The words felt steady, powerful. Not angry. Not emotional. Just final. Mom straightened in her chair. "You didn't tell me you were looking." "I wasn't," I said. "I decided last week." Ivy let out a small scoff. "Wow, dramatic much?" I ignored her. "For years," I continued, my voice still calm, "I've contributed to this house. I've helped with bills. I've stayed close because I thought that's what family does. But I realized something recently. No one moved. I've been waiting to feel chosen here. And I don't anymore." The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the quiet. Mom's face hardened slightly. "Monica, it was just a mix-up." "Don't make a scene." "A mix-up," I looked at the empty space under the tree where my gift never existed. "I'm not making a scene," I said softly. "I'm making a decision." I closed the folder gently. I got myself peace this Christmas. The room froze. For the first time, no one had a clever comment. No one laughed. No one corrected me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shouting. And maybe that's what unsettled them the most. I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Dinner was lovely," I added politely. Ivy's smile had faded. Mom looked like she was calculating her next move, trying to regain control of a situation that had slipped from her hands. But it was too late. Something had shifted. And for the first time in 27 years, I didn't feel invisible at that table. I felt free. When they saw it, the room froze. No one reached for their wine. No one made a joke. Even the Christmas lights seemed to flicker more quietly, like the house itself was holding its breath. I could see it on their faces. Confusion first, then disbelief, and finally something they weren't used to feeling around me: uncertainty. For years I had been predictable. The peacemaker. The one who adjusted. The one who said, "It's fine," even when it wasn't. They knew how to handle that version of me, but they didn't know this one. Dad cleared his throat. "You don't have to move out over a misunderstanding." "It's not about tonight," I replied. My voice didn't shake. That surprised even me. Tonight was just clarity. Mom. His jaw tightened. "So you're punishing us?" "No," I said gently. "I'm choosing myself." That sentence hung in the air heavier than any accusation ever could. Ivy leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You're overreacting. It was a joke. We said we misplaced it." I looked at her, really looked at her. The confidence she wore like armor. The way she had always known she was the favorite. It wasn't even entirely her fault. She had grown up being chosen. I had grown up being compared. "Ivy," I said quietly, "do you even remember the last time Mom forgot something of yours?" She didn't answer. Mom exhaled sharply. "This is ridiculous. We have given you everything." I almost laughed at that. Not because it was funny, but because it was so far from the truth. "You gave me a roof," I said. "And I'm grateful for that. But love shouldn't feel like something you have to earn every day." Silence again. And then something unexpected happened. Dad spoke up. "She's right." All of us turned toward him. He looked uncomfortable, like he had been holding something in for years and didn't quite know how to release it. "We have been harder on you, Monica," he admitted. "We expected more from you. You're stronger. More responsible." Mom stared at him. "So now this is my fault?" "I didn't say that," he replied carefully. "But maybe we stopped noticing." Stopped noticing. That was it. That was the invisible weight I had carried for so long. Not cruelty, not hatred, just indifference disguised as normal. I picked up the folder again, holding it lightly against my chest. "I don't want an apology tonight," I said. "I don't want a last-minute gift pulled from a closet. I just needed to stop pretending this didn't hurt." Ivy shifted in her seat, her earlier confidence cracking just slightly. "You could have said something before." I met her eyes. "I shouldn't have had to. The truth doesn't have to be loud to be powerful." Mom finally stood up from her chair. For a moment, I thought she was going to argue again. Instead, she walked toward the tree and stared at the empty space beneath it. "I didn't buy you anything," she admitted quietly. The honesty felt sharper than any insult. "I know," I said. "I thought—" She paused, struggling. "I thought you wouldn't care. You're always so independent. You never ask for anything." That hurt in a different way. "I never asked because I didn't think it would matter," I replied. The room didn't feel hostile anymore. It felt exposed. And that's when it hit them. It wasn't about a box with wrapping paper. It was about years of small exclusions. Years of being the reliable one. The quiet one. The afterthought. Dad rubbed his face. Ivy looked down at her lap. Mom turned toward me again. "Are you really leaving?" "Yes." "When?" "January 1st. The date sounded symbolic. A new year. A new beginning. She nodded slowly, like she was realizing she couldn't control this outcome. "You've already signed?" "Yes." Another long pause. Well, she said finally, her voice softer than I had heard in years. I hope it makes you happy. It already does, I answered. I walked over to the tree one last time. I didn't need a present from under it. I had given myself something far more valuable, self-respect. As I grabbed my coat, Ivy stood up. Monica. I turned. She hesitated. Pride battled with vulnerability on her face. I didn't think it was that serious. It was, I said. But it doesn't have to stay that way. That was the difference. I wasn't cutting them off. I wasn't burning the house down. I was just refusing to stay small inside it. I stepped out into the cold night air, the snow crunching beneath my boots. The sky was clear, scattered with stars. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. Inside that house, they were probably still sitting in silence, replaying the moment, reevaluating things they had taken for granted. When they saw it, when they saw that I wasn't begging, wasn't crying, wasn't fighting, the room froze. Because they finally understood, I didn't need their permission anymore. 2 weeks later, on New Year's Day, I carried the last box into my apartment. The space was small, but it was mine. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, reflecting off bare walls that held nothing but possibility. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom, "We're proud of you." It was simple, short, maybe overdue, but it was a start. I placed my phone down and looked around at the quiet room. This was the real gift. Not something wrapped in paper, but the courage to stand up at the table when they expected silence, and smile anyway.